And then they give us some pseudocode to illustrate how the factory method can be actually implemented. So we have a factory method as some kind of abstract thing, right? So pattern is not something concrete, but rather it's some such an abstract general thing that we can implement different methods. So we can use such thing as that. We can use pure like not pure, but for example Java, how it was 10 years ago, how people thought, yeah, 20 10 years old, yeah, using classes, using inheritance. But also we can use functional programming to implement the factory method using functions. If we can actually, okay. So pseudocode. This example illustrates how the factory method can be used for creating cross-platform UI elements without coupling the client code to concrete UI classes. So they went from this logistics app where we have ship, truck, transport, some logistics app, we have C logistics, road logistics, and stuff, so on and so forth. Then they went to the abstract definition of the or structure of this pattern, not mentioning the concrete like truck or something like that. So they say concrete product A, it can be truck, it can be something else from the real world. So it's like an abstract structure of this factory method pattern. And this is like concrete scenario in which we can apply this generic factory method. And then they from very generic structure, they went to the other example like factory method. So this example illustrates how the factory method can be used for creating cross-platform UI elements without coupling the client code to concrete UI classes. So they replaced, like here we have an abstract structure of this, and then the concrete implementation of this generic pattern. So this is one. So they were like showing this one, the concrete part of implementation of this factory method abstract pattern, and then they went to another concrete example where we can apply this factory method pattern. So this example illustrates how the factory method pattern can be used for creating cross-platform UI elements without coupling the client code to concrete UI classes. So they say we have some kind of interface button where we have render, we have on-click, we have Windows button and HTML button. So Windows button, I think it's something like where when we have a desktop application with buttons. So for example, we have I don't know, we have some GUI based. So for example, this IntelliJ IDEA, it's like graphical user interface desktop application. So we have buttons. We can click on these buttons, right? So this is like button from here. So they say that Windows button. Then we have HTML button. HTML button is just like we have a, for example, some kind of site, right? And we have some buttons, for example, here. We can so we have interface button, which is general, and we have concrete implementations. Windows button, HTML button, here we have only two of them, but maybe, who knows, we can imagine something else. Some other kind of button. So the interface says that we only have render and on-click. Render is like how this would be rendered in the browser, for example, if we HTML button, and render if Windows button. So similar buttons can render different ways based on where they are, or in HTML or on Windows. And onClick is just a event, how to call this event, event computation. I don't know how to call this. Something that is capturing event. It has an input as an event, and it produces some, or making some side effect. For example, sending an HTTP request to backend side to handle something, to fetch some data, or to post some data to backend. Also, we have some kind of dialog, which is like client. It's not client code. It's like the part of this abstract of this factory method design pattern. So we have dialog as a interface or abstract class, which declares that we can render and create button, and this dialog class or interface, it does not create specific buttons like Windows button or HTML button on its own, but rather it delegates the creation of the button to its subclasses, and these subclasses know exactly what type of buttons they would return. So for example, know that we have create button method that returns abstract button, this button interface, and we have the same method signature in the subclasses or implementing classes if this is interface. So Windows dialog class knows how to create button. It returns button interface, instance of interface, and here they say that this returns new Windows button because Windows dialog knows how to return Windows button, and here they omitted, but they would say that we return new web dialog button, something like that. The cross-platform dialog example. So this is like concrete implementation of this abstract structure factory method.